afternoon, good people, and welcome to Real Chicks Rock Presents Real Discussions. I am your host, Michelle Dawes Birt, and as always, I'm super excited. Listen, I can't take it. It's already 2025. I don't know what happened to 24. 24 just went just like that. And now we're in 25. It's January. We can't even say Happy New Year anymore because we're so many days into the new year. We can't even do it. But it's a lot of things on the horizon. I think that because of the new administration that's going into office in a few weeks, I think people are just heads down, doing what they need to do to buckle down, embrace the next couple of years on what's going on. But things are still happening in a positive way. Despite that, when you talk to people individually, there's still an excitement about 2025. And so I'm excited about what this new year is going to bring. I have a graduating senior from high school. With mixed emotions because he's my only son. I'm going to be an empty nester, so I don't know how I'm going to handle that, but I'm going to use this platform to help me get through it as we get closer to it. But yes, a lot of super things going on or expected to go on in this new year. And of course, we're talking here to you from Atlanta. The weather is up and down. It's in the mid-50s today. Yesterday was cold. I was bundled up. I had the hat, the scarf, the whole thing. Today is a little bit kinder, but global warming at its best. But we're just glad to be above ground, just to be here and have an opportunity to just sit and talk with you today. Listen, I want to welcome all the new listeners. Thank you so much for leaning in and checking out our conversation today. Let me give you a little bit of background about what Real Chicks Rock is all about. It's all about creatively collaborating to connect and raise awareness regarding issues that impact women. And we've been doing things over the past several years, community service, mentoring, public speaking, and we've been doing this platform since April of 2016. So we have an anniversary coming in the next couple of months. We're super excited. And it's these type of guests that we have that allows me to smile so bright and lean in and get excited about the conversation. Today's topic is how art shapes cultural reawakening. Yes, and my guest today is Dr. Fahamu Pecou. How are you?
I am excellent and thrilled to be here.
Oh my goodness, I'm super excited. I told him before we got started, I was just so excited. I'm going to just jump right in because I got a lot of questions and things I want to cover. Where are you from?
I am originally from Brooklyn.
Yeah, I felt that.
Born in Brooklyn, but I grew up in South Carolina.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Wait, how old were you when you moved to South Carolina? Do you remember?
5.
And you still claim Brooklyn?
I do.
You got that flavor. Yeah. Do you get to go home a lot to re-up on your swag?
I used to go much more frequently than I go now, but now I still go maybe once or twice a year.
Okay.
But yeah, I love Brooklyn. It's always, a great place to kind of go and reset, recharge,
and re-up, as we say in the streets. Yeah. I'm from the Bronx, so I know exactly what you're talking about. What was life like for you in South Carolina? Were you on the coastal? What part of South Carolina did you grow up in?
We were in an area called the PD region, which is like Florence, Darlington, Camden. It's not too far from the coast, but far enough that you're not on the coast. I'll be completely frank with you. My experience in South Carolina was tumultuous, but in that I found, my passion for art and creativity, and learned, learned a lot about, community.
Okay. Were you self-taught?
Yeah.
You self-taught yourself? Yeah. So what was your first, from your artistic expression, was it always acrylics and oils and canvas, or was it just pencil drawings? How did you start?
Yeah, I started out with pencils and crayons and chalk.
Really?
Yeah, like, so, one of my earliest memories is being in like first grade. And you remember those spiral notebooks?
Yes,
it'd be like different colors, red, blue, green,
yes,
blah,
yes,
blah, blah.
yes.
So I used to live in front of the television watching cartoons. And I would I taught myself to draw, watching cartoons like the Flintstones or Bugs Bunny. Back then cartoons were a lot less sophisticated, so a character would just kind of be there,
stiff,
and their mouth would move, right? And so my thing was to try to draw them before they moved again.
Really?
So I would draw the Smurfs and the Flintstones and things like that on my on the covers of those notebooks.
Notebooks.
But then I realized at some point that I could reverse shade with an eraser. I could take away color, right? And so I was doing that kind of thing, and kids in my class were like, "Oh, can you draw that on my notebook?" And if we behaved well, during the day or the week on a Friday, like our teacher would, invite me up to draw on the chalkboard, So drawing with pencil, crayon, like that was art. That was the only thing that I knew about art. I never saw a painting. I never touched painting. I never saw sculpture. I never went to a gallery or a museum until I was in college.
Really? What college did you attend?
I went to the Atlanta College of Art.
Nice. Nice. And what drew you to Atlanta? Was it just the college itself?
Yes.
Like just coming here? So when you went to college, then you got really open, right? Then you got exposed to different textures and styles. But did you always revert back to the drawing? Was that your space?
Well, drawing is very fundamental to any artistic practice. You name any artist, regardless of what medium they work in. One of the ways you work out your idea is drawing and sketching, doodling, But yeah, I didn't know anything about Atlanta before I moved here. I knew, of course, of the Atlanta Braves because my great aunt used to watch baseball.
The Braves. And you knew about Martin Luther King, right?
Yes, but I didn't make the I don't know that I made the connection between Atlanta and Martin Luther King. I really didn't know anything about Atlanta, and so coming here. The reason that I came here was that I was, as a kid, I knew I wanted to be an artist. Anybody who would ask me, I would tell them I wanted to be an artist. And people would always say, "Oh, artists never make any money until they die, or you got to be a starving artist." And I was like, "I'm already skinny enough.
You can't starve no more."
Starve too. So, as a 6, 7, 8-year-old, I'm trying to figure out how do artists make money. Because I want to do this. I don't want to do anything else. And when I was in the 4th grade, about 9 years old, we read this thing in school one day about Charles Schulz, who created the Peanuts. And it referred to him as an animator. I'd never heard that word before.
Right.
And mind you, all I did was watch cartoons, but I never thought about the people who made cartoons as a viable career path or anything like that. Anyway, I raced home that day. We had this set of encyclopedias from 1968. I raced home. I grabbed the A encyclopedia. I looked up animator. It said go to C, look up cartoonist. So I grabbed the C, looked up cartoonist, read everything it said about cartoons, and it said that a cartoonist could make up to $1,000 a week. And so I'm like,
and that was back then.
It's 1984. Carry the one. They got to be making a lot more money now. I'm going to do that. Right? So, by the time I started looking at colleges and stuff like that, I was like, if I was going to be a doctor, I would go to medical school. If I want to be an artist, I need to go to an art school.
Yes.
So I tried to find, programs that had animation, as a major, and I came across the Art Institute of Atlanta. I looked into that. They had an animation program, and so that was my plan. I was going to go to the Art Institute. But lo and behold, that year I'd won a statewide art competition in South Carolina. And a recruiter from the Atlanta College of Art came to my high school to meet me and talk to me about Atlanta College of Art. And they were like, "We'll give you a scholarship." And I was like, I'm going there.
Nice.
But the thing that really, intrigued me was he told me that he was like, the Art Institute is a cool, school if you want to do that, but it's more like a trade school. You'll get a 2-year associate's degree.
Okay.
But if you come to Atlanta College of Art, you get a 4-year, bachelor's degree. He was like, that's more significant, and you learn about fine art. And I'm like, fine art, what is that? But that's how I ended up coming to Atlanta, and it was a huge culture shock.
Yeah, well, just too many people. It was a city. It was a lot of black people in one space. Yeah. People looking beautiful. Yeah. You're like, oh my God, this
African culture,
yes,
African art, and I was always fascinated by anything African from a little kid.
Yeah,
you got to imagine growing up in this little town in South Carolina with a name like Fahamu Pecou, right? Like,
what does your name mean, by the way?
Fahamu means understanding in Swahili.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So growing up with that name, I was at first I used to hate my name, and I wanted a quote unquote normal name, like Tyrone, like my friends, and
Robert.
But one time, I had a call from my father. Without going too deep into it, my father was institutionalized in growing up, which is how I ended up in South Carolina in the first place. And he called me one time. It was like for my birthday or something. And during our conversation, he was like, "Do you know what your name means?" And I was like, "My name means something." And that's when he told me that Swahili, it means understanding. And he was like talking to me about African culture and why we should celebrate our heritage. Yes. And my parents were both Pan-Africanists, and you know what I mean, like really, really deep into all of that stuff. So that set me off on a course. I was fascinated, intrigued by anything that had to do with African culture. So coming to Atlanta and seeing places like there was a store, an underground mall that was just all African art.
I remember that store.
The National Black Arts Festival. Seeing people in African gear in the West End.
Yeah, Shrine of Black Madonna.
You know what I mean? Like,
it was beautiful,
I used to hang out in those stores with my sketchbook and just draw masks and sculptures. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I was just so drawn to it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Atlanta was the thing. So coming to Atlanta, seeing all of this, you have something awaken inside of you. What was the artistic scene for you then? Did you feel that you as a young artist had opportunities, or you were still trying to find your way artistically? How was it for you then?
Yeah, it was a bit of it was awkward.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up surrounded by art.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I didn't have the same relationship to art that some of my peers and contemporaries had. And so, there were times that I butt heads with professors and stuff like that, because my drawing style was very much influenced by Black Bart Simpson and you know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. I used to make my own comic books, growing up, because, I couldn't buy them. There was no comic book store where I grew up. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I knew comic books existed, but I just made my own, you know? So I had I was very focused and intentional about what I was trying to do, but at the same time, I was being introduced to this world that was so foreign, but also exciting. Yeah. I had a really good friend named Quashel Curtis, who is from the Bronx, and we became instant friends, as soon as school started.
Yeah.
And, she used to hang out with me in my dorm room, and she was a painter, like serious. She had gone to LaGuardia, like the School of Performing Arts in New York, and she was already showing in galleries and stuff like that when we were freshmen in college.
Wow.
And so she would be like, yeah, those cartoons and everything are cute, but come with me to this museum. And so she started taking me in. Okay, this is Manet, and this is what Manet does, and this is Van Gogh, and this is what Van Gogh does, and that, what I mean? So she's breaking stuff down to me.
Right.
And I used to sit in my room drawing cartoons all day, but then I started painting those cartoons, and then I started painting them even larger, and then I stopped making cartoons altogether and just started painting. But the scene, I would say, I can't really speak on the Atlanta scene too broadly in those first few years of being in Atlanta, because I was very insulated, by my college experience. Okay. I didn't venture very far from campus, the most I might go away from campus is like Underground Mall or Lenox Mall.
Okay.
But I didn't have a car, so if you couldn't get there on MARTA, you wasn't going anywhere.
You wasn't going anywhere.
And I didn't really know anything about the city like that, right? Excuse me. It wasn't until just before I graduated in my senior year that I got introduced to Yin Yang Cafe, and that changed everything.
Changed your whole world. Everything. Who introduced you to that? How did you come on to that?
So one of my schoolmates was a young woman. Her name is Krista Clark. Amazing artist.
Yes.
Amazing artist. But she had two older sisters. One of her older sisters, Melissa, used to come by and hang out with us sometimes. And one day Melissa was there and she was like, yo, I went to this place called Yin Yang. I think you would really like it. You know, she was like, it's a cool vibe. I think you should go. You know, the next time I go, I'll let you know. And so the next time, you know, she got ready to go, she invited me along with her and
changed your life.
Changed my life.
For the people that are listening that don't know, what was it about Yin Yang Cafe? Describe what it was from your perspective, because everybody has their own perspective and experience. So share yours.
Yeah. That first night that I was in Yin Yang, I remember distinctly, like I think it was a poetry night. But after the poetry set ended, you know, the DJ came on and people just got up and they were like dancing. It was house music and I was just blown away by the movement and the freedom, right? Like
the energy.
And I sat there that night. I didn't even have a sketchbook or anything. I happened to have a pen or borrowed a pen from somebody, and I was drawing on napkins.
Really?
Drawing people dancing.
I love it.
You know? But Yin Yang was, I often refer to Yin Yang like grad school.
For you.
It was a nucleus of young, Black brilliance. Everybody from the AUC, you know, homegrowns from Atlanta,
transplants,
all creatives, all creatives, you know, and you name it, poetry, musicians, rappers, dancers, actors, painters, you know what I mean, like
DJs,
everybody. And everybody hung out there, and really, like, that's where my sense of community was born. You know, I have very great relationships with people that I met that first night at Yin Yang to this day. And we've grown up together. But yeah, that place really, you know, I was super shy and awkward and I, you know, was not a very, you know, outgoing person. But I ended up becoming the MC for the poetry night. I ended up performing poetry. I ended up mounting and producing and curating my own exhibitions in Yin Yang Cafe. You know, I began my career doing graphic design, designing flyers and stuff like that for Yin Yang Cafe. So it was like, it really was an entire universe. And as a young Black creative, it was the kind of affirming and supportive environment that we all needed. You know, I mean, I remember bringing India Ari up the very first time she ever performed on stage. You know, John Good, the poet and author, and, you know, MC John always makes jokes about you know, his first time coming up on stage, and then me giving him a critique. You know, of his performance that he, you know, was able to, you know, respond to and put back into his work, and that changed, you know, things. You know what I mean? So it's like just seeing how all of us like kind of came through that space, and, you know,
and where you guys are now is even more beautiful because to your point, you guys were younger. They're not knowing, coming out of college. First loves, first relationships, for some people first marriages and things like that. And now to still have those relationships today as grown adults and leaving a footprint in Atlanta is amazing. Fahamu, would you say that the Yin Yang years helped cultivate you for your exhibitions?
Oh, most certainly.
So by you doing Yin Yang, did the exhibitions then come? How did your first exhibition or gallery showing happen for you?
So yes, and like I mentioned before, you know, I would approach the owners of Yin Yang and be like, you know, can I do an art show in here? So they gave me free reign to produce and install and curate my own show. So I learned how to do that.
Yeah.
I used to work the door, oftentimes at Yin
Working
Yang.
the doors at any situation is magic. I speak from experience. Go.
So the folks that I met there, but also learning the business.
Yes.
Is
important.
Learning how to do marketing and promotion. I work street teams, giving out flyers. You know what I'm saying? I work with the promoters. Doing all kinds of very like working in various roles. In this kind of creative economy, in this gig economy. But in terms of my first show, I'm kind of glazing over a couple other little things that happened. But after a while, I moved back to New York, and I worked as a graphic designer. This is like 99, 2000. And I worked in this small agency that did a lot of collateral for like hip hop labels and restaurants, nightclubs and stuff like that. And that inspired me to start my own design company. But at the same time, I was also trying to get my work out there as an artist, as a painter.
Yeah.
And I was frustrated, because I wasn't getting the kind of response and reactions that I, had hoped for.
Yeah.
I remember sitting, because we did a lot of stuff with like hip hop artists, I got to sit with a lot of rappers and, DJs and stuff like that and design stuff for them and realize like, man, you're nothing like the character you play on TV, you know what I mean? And I always thought that was fascinating that, that media and marketing has this capacity to influence how we see people, how we think about them, what we think about them, right? And I was like, I wonder what would happen if somebody marketed a visual artist the same way we do a rap artist. Would people respond the same way?
Right.
Kind of found out a way in the back of my head.
Okay.
A couple years later, I came up with a campaign called Fahamu Pecou is the shit. And the whole idea was that I was going to market myself a visual artist, using the same tactics and techniques that I would use for my hip hop clients.
Right.
And so
he's wearing the brand, by the way. Wearing the brand, by the way.
So I started making these like, posters and stickers of like this illustration that I did of myself with no shirt on, just looking really hard.
Yeah.
And it was really kind of a joke. Like I was making fun of like the marketing campaign for 50 Cent when he first dropped, right? Which was ubiquitous. Like he was everywhere. And I was like, I need to do something like that. So, I started doing those kinds of things and making T-shirts and, again, just kind of using my street team knowledge and putting stuff out on the street just to kind of see what would happen.
Yeah.
And it took off like a rocket. Like everyone was like, who is this Fahamu guy? Why is he the shit? What does that even mean? What does he do? Because it didn't say what I did.
You just said use the shit.
Yeah, that's it. And ultimately, I started making paintings based on this character that I created, this persona that I created.
That's what that is. Yeah.
And one day there was are you familiar with Art Beats and Lyrics?
Yes, absolutely.
They got big shout out to W and Jabari.
Yes.
But they had done a couple of iterations of Art Beats and Lyrics and Little 5 Points, and I participated in those. And then they got invited to do a college night at the High Museum. Now, if you know anything about the High,
yeah, I do.
Especially in those days, they were not welcoming to
at all
the community in the ways that they are
at
now.
all.
And I mean, I went to the Atlanta College of Art, which shared the campus with the High Museum, and as students, they gave us a hard time about coming in there. Anyway, with this invitation, everybody on the art scene is amped. We're about to show in the High? Oh, we're going off.
You go.
And so that day of the show, I was passing out, shirts to different people, that I knew and asking them to wear it to the opening because I wanted to create a scene. And there was at that time I was my studio and office was in Castleberry Hill. There were 14 art galleries in that neighborhood, and I had gone door to door to 13 of them. Yes, multiple occasions, trying to get them to look at my work and consider giving me a show, and they wouldn't give me the time of day. Gosh. Now there was one gallery that was directly across the street from me that was run by a gentleman named Bill Bounds. The gallery was called Ty Stokes Gallery. And I would often see Bill, when I arrived at my studios in the morning, he would be coming back from his morning run or something. And Bill was, 60-something-year-old white dude, white hair, banker. And he would see me, we would chat sometimes when we saw each other. And I always thought he was amusing because he would be like, "Hey, did you hear that new Wu-Tang album?" I'm like, "Bill, what you know about Wu-Tang?" But he knew his
he knew
his stuff.
He knew his stuff. Okay.
On this one day of the Art Beats and Lyrics thing, I saw Bill and I said, "Bill, are you going to this Art Beats and Lyrics thing?" He was like, "Man, young black artist at the high? Yeah, I'll be there." And I was like, "Well, will you wear one of my shirts?" He was like, "Sure, of course." So I invited him into my studio to get a shirt. And I ran upstairs to get the T-shirt, and I came back down, and the paintings that I was going to show were lined up on the wall. I came down, and Bill was standing there like this.
Holding his head. Yeah.
And he was like, "You painted these?" And I said, "Yeah." He was like, "You should put these in my gallery."
There you go. There it is.
That's how my career started.
There it is. There it is. And let's talk about that. You said a lot. You said a lot. Because Arts, Beats, and Lyrics is still dope to this day. Shouts out to Andre, follow the hat, MC and most of the stuff when I attend. But the installations at Arts, Beat, and Lyric are so huge and beautiful. Let's talk about that. And still been doing it. They just celebrated 20 years.
Yeah.
So it's over 20 years that they've been doing this. Setting some context for the High. The High Museum, yeah, right. You're lucky to get membership back then because it was very stiff and stifled. Coming from New York, sometimes we're a little snobbish and we're like, "This ain't no real museum. It's all small. You ain't really got nothing here I want to see." I want to tip my hat to them now due to evolution.
Oh, yeah.
And I think COVID really shook the dust off of their feet because they're definitely in a very creative space, and we're there.
Yeah.
And we're there. And so to see even giants and different exhibits that have been there, the Obamas when they were there, just some great work is just like, wow, I'm proud and happy to be a member of the High Museum. So I know you turned it out then. The response that day was like phenomenal, right?
It was crazy.
Everybody you knew and then some, right? Got the word out, everybody's there. So then they tied in this brand to the artist. So they finally got to meet you. So then what was next for you? Did that open the door with the collaboration of your exhibit being in the gallery across the street now and just all this other work? Did that start to kind of get you going?
Oh, most certainly. There was an article that came out after, that event at the High Museum. And, there was a couple paragraphs about the event, but the rest of the article was talking about me. Really? Because, I showed up with like a bodyguard, you know what I mean?
You thought you was Prince. But,
for me, it was all a part. It was like performance
art,
right? The whole night, I didn't talk to anybody. I refused to speak, and the bodyguard would kind of cut people off like,
"Wow,
you
not really
any interviews tonight," you know what I mean? And I had my homegirl, Honey. She was like my date for the night, and so like people would be trying to talk to me, but Honey would be like, "Yeah, what Fahamu was saying in this piece, and he's going, and so it was like a whole little thing, and I just kind of played it back, dark glasses on, just kind of, and so that kind of created this like cult of legend, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And I, continue to do these kinds of performances for a couple of years.
Yeah.
But the show that I did with Bill at Ty Stokes, that was April of 2005, and I had my show with Bill in December of 2005. Okay. So this is my first solo show in a gallery. Yeah. And as we were working towards the opening of the show, Bill, who had lived in Texas for many years, shared some of my work with a friend of his who owns a gallery in Dallas. She was like, "Oh, this is amazing. I want to show this right away." So I opened the show with Bill the beginning of December. 3 weeks later, I opened another show in Dallas. A collector from there who bought a piece and also owns a gallery in San Francisco.
That was it.
Was like, "I want to do a show with you in San Francisco." So a couple months later, a show in San Francisco. And then, couple months after that, I got picked up by a gallery in New York. And so it just started snowballing.
Wow.
And like I said, it was a really, really like amazing,
introduction.
Yeah.
Into it.
Kind of kicked the door in.
Ooh.
And a part of it was also the work was about like destabilizing perceptions of Black people in media, but also about the absence and erasure of Black people in the art world.
Yeah.
So I had this character that sort of embodied all of this like stereotypes and bravado, of hip hop culture.
Yes.
But on the covers of these really highbrow art magazines. So the paintings were giant replicas of magazine covers of like Art in America, Art News, you name it, any highbrow art magazine, but with this character, sunglasses on, smoking a cigar, grabbing his crotch, throwing up a middle finger, you know what I'm saying? It was like, this real compelling juxtaposition that, for me was important because, up until that point, one of the things that I and a lot of other Black artists were struggling with was being typecast and pigeonholed, Black visual artists, I should say, being typecast and pigeonholed by the art establishment that was not really embracing of Black art and Black artists. And so a lot of people that I knew, a lot of artists that I knew were trying to do things like change the skin color or not paint people at all, or, to do things so that they wouldn't be seen as a Black artist, which meant if you got seen as a Black artist, the only time you got to show your work was in February.
I know.
And then the rest of the year you sit there like this. And so, I intentionally went the opposite direction.
Sure did.
It was like, no, I'm gonna give you all this Black.
You sure did. You put it in our faces. And to me, Fahamu, that makes it feels like you're radical. You're so radical in your art. It feels like you're an activist as well in the messages that what you're saying. When I got to really introduce myself and meet you, because I would see you in different spaces, coffee shops, different places. It was the real niggas don't die. That was real in your face. Strong statements, but the art is so beautiful.
Thank you.
It's so intentional. For me, as a woman that's rich in melanin, it's beautiful to see images of people that look like me.
That's intentional for sure.
Because oftentimes, at least previously, people with dark melanin or rich melanin wasn't considered beautiful, right? And the stereotypes that went with it, you worked in housekeeping, or you were the nanny, or you might have been full figured, and your hair was in a bandana or scarf tied up. There wasn't anything depicted about you that made you look beautiful. And so here you come with this artwork, even the earrings, the sneakers, everything. And me coming from New York, I felt I could relate just from the style of what the people, you drew on the people, but how beautiful they looked, a pregnant woman and everything. And so I was like, this is really amazing. And I'm going to speak to the crowd that came in that night when I saw the exhibit over at Miami Circle, if I can digress for a second. Multicultural people. It's never just a Black thing, right? So shouts out for the people that see the art in it and the artistry. And then you also have other symbolic things in your art, orishas, or maybe an altar giving homage to the ancestors. And that's always been in your art since you've started?
It's interesting because, as I mentioned before, I've always been extremely intrigued by, fascinated by, curious about African art and African art objects and the appearance of African art. It always spoke to my soul. Very early on, before I ever had a show or anything like that, had opportunities to travel to places like Panama, which is where my father is from. And engaging with the artisans there, and seeing their work and seeing how their work while referring to their very specific Panamanian culture, had ties to African art objects that I'm like, how did this happen? You know? Or, you know, learning things like, you know, there across the African diaspora, there are all of these different subsects of Black people who identify themselves as Congo. You know what I mean? Which was like, Congo, like, why are they Congo? Like, you know what I mean? Just these different kinds of ways that like African ideology and memory shows up in us, and oftentimes in ways that we can't fully articulate, but we feel it. We feel it. And it comes out of us. It comes through us. I often tell the story about how I got introduced to Ifa and Yoruba culture. You know, at the time I was making drawings, like charcoal acrylic drawings of these like faces. And I would do things sometimes like put glass, like broken mirror where the eyes are, you know, incorporate like cowrie shells and feathers and, you know, things like that. And people would see the work and be like, who's that? What's that about? I don't know. It's just in my head, right? So the first time I was ever invited to and attended an Ile, Yoruba temple, was the first Sunday of the month that was dedicated to ancestor veneration, which is a major part of the tradition. And when you get to the temple, before you go in, you take off your shoes. And I took off my shoes and I stepped across the threshold, and it was like,
you felt something. You felt
instantly.
Spirit.
Felt instantly.
It's like they was waiting on you.
Like they was waiting.
Wow.
On you. And as I mentioned, it was the first Sunday dedicated to ancestor veneration, and it wasn't a thing like a preacher get up and
no.
You know, we sat in a circle, played drums, we sang songs, and then, you know, some of the elders began to talk about ancestor veneration and what that looks like, you know. And I kid you not, everything that they talked about, every icon they described, every symbol they talked about was things that I was doing in my work. I just didn't have the language for it until then. I was like, oh,
now it makes sense. Makes even more sense.
Now it makes
sense. So now you're even being more deliberate with it because you understand the foundation, the meaning, and now it's honor because they're using you as a vessel to continue to share the legacy and the work and where we come from as a people. So thank you for doing that. I want to talk about your style because the asymmetrical haircut, how, you know, that was like did we get that from the hip hop days in Brooklyn? And so you just decided to just bring that back here in Atlanta? Like, what's going on with you?
So for cats who think I'm, you know, trying to get it from the kids who are now doing the cuts.
You've been had it.
I've been rocking this since 2007.
My God. Like almost 20 years. You're 18 years strong.
Right. So, you know, and I know it's 2007 to be precise because at the time I had a low Caesar.
Yes.
Just a regular Caesar fade. And I was like, man, I want to do something different with my hair. And initially I was considering a mohawk.
Okay.
And that year, Sean Combs ran the New York City Marathon. And he had a mohawk.
And so he was like, nah.
And everybody and their mother
was doing that.
Started getting mohawks. And I was like, yeah, I can't do that.
You can't do that.
I got to have my own thing. So I was talking to my barber. I was like, yo, I think I want to do a Gumby. And some of my friends were like, nah, don't do that. And then I did it, and everybody was like,
it looks good on you.
Yeah.
It looks good on you. It's part of the icon package.
It's a part of it.
It's part of the package and the eyewear and everything. You look good. You always look fashionably well. You know what I'm saying? You always look fashionably well whenever I see you. The self-portrait thing, I think it's amazing that you're able to draw yourself and you do it so well. It's almost like, I don't want to say a superhero, but it's because in person you're a very sweet, humble, kind-spirited person when you're in a room. Those pictures are bold. It's like a little sagging.
Sometimes a lot.
You know what I mean? Tank tops. Like it's almost like a strong neighborhood superhero, kind of like The Wire, like the dude, like it's just amazing. Do you find it difficult to draw yourself, or you just add on, or how do you get that?
Yeah, no. So two things. One, my process.
Yes.
I start everything with doing a photo shoot.
Okay.
So, again, and this all kind of goes back to those days of the magazine covers. I create, based on my concept, I create a set for the photo shoot. I do the styling. I pick the clothes. I do all the, I do all my own stunts. For me, this is also about how I'm telling the story. And I'm also very much a performance artist. In fact, I would consider myself a performance artist before anything else. And the photo sessions are documentation of these performances that I then take into the painting. But the other thing I was going to say is, even though I'm using my body, they're not self-portraits, which is kind of what you pointed out. Like me versus what you see on the canvas is like night and day. It's like two different things. It's like and I think of it like the characters are kind of a avatar.
Okay.
To talk about again ways we kind of crunch Black men into a stereotype or to an idea that we feel comfortable with.
We do.
Also as a way to talk about, masking, right? How we are oftentimes compelled to show up a certain kind of way because our authentic self may not necessarily be as well received,
right.
So how we play a part, how we play a role, but in doing so, in the repetition of using my own body and my own face in these works, it forces people to kind of reevaluate what they think or what they thought they knew. Because you realize again, like he's not like that.
Right.
And the truth is, most of 99.7% of the people that we see on television or in magazines or in media are not what we, the real person is not that, right? Like it's all performance.
I want you've come to us from South Carolina, full scholarship ride for college. Then you get an opportunity to go work in New York, and you come back to Atlanta. What is it about Atlanta? Why do you continue to make this your home or your space, or add to the culture?
Black. Everything black. No, there's a kind of, there is a kind of liberatory expression of Blackness that only exists in Atlanta. And trust me, I've traveled pretty broadly around the world. And there's no place like here where Black people have the kind of mobility, agency, autonomy, where you don't find yourself being reduced down to someone else's idea.
Right.
And whenever I make this argument, people inevitably will say, well, DC is a chocolate city and Brooklyn is the planet and
Right.
And right, those things are true, but the kind of Blackness that you see in those cities is a very different kind of Blackness, right? Yes. Atlanta's, here's an illustration that I often give. I don't care what neighborhood you gentrify and you put up you bring in an Erewhon grocery store or, whatever you want to do. You're going to find wealthy Black people there, middle class Black people there, Black people working there, the dude with his pants sagging there, the chick that you would consider like a real ghetto chick up in there, you know what I'm saying? Like and they're not pretending to be anything other than who and what they are. And nobody's looking at them crazy.
Right.
You know, like it's just accepted. Like that's what it is. And when you have that kind of freedom of movement, when you have that kind of mobility, like your idea of who and what you can be as a Black person, it grows and expands exponentially.
Yes, it does.
You know, versus being in the DC where if I go to a certain part of town, it's expected that I'm from a certain economic class,
yes,
you know?
Yes.
And if I'm not from that economic class, I know I don't go over there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
There's no place in Atlanta like that.
You're right. There is a freedom here. Fahamu, you have done some work with some of the people here in Atlanta that are Atlanta, like the Killer Mikes of the world, right? How does that feel to work with or be a part of the culture? I said this to you. We talked about it a little bit before we went live. You have made contributions to the culture here in Atlanta. How does that make you feel?
You know, I always say I didn't grow up in Atlanta, but Atlanta raised me.
Yeah.
You know?
Come on, sir.
And, you know, I mean, all the way back to Southern Playalistic Cadillac funky music. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
The amount of creativity and pride in Blackness that exists in this city is unparalleled.
Yeah.
And it feels great. I feel honored, you know, to be considered a son of Atlanta. I feel honored when, you know, them cats from Doug and, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you know, Morehouse and all that, you know, when they embrace me as one of their own, you know, that means a great deal to me because, again, like I don't know, in fact, I know I wouldn't be the type of artist that I am. I wouldn't be making the type of work that I make. I wouldn't have the confidence or the courage to say the things that I say if it hadn't been for Atlanta's intervention on my sense of self.
Yes. Yeah. It's beautiful work. The mere fact that you got shouted out on Blackish, huh? How did that, when you heard that, did you know that was happening?
No, I did not.
So you was just, hey, I like the show, I'm watching the show. And Anthony Anderson's character is like awakened, right? As most of us are, because I too, right? The only art that I saw was what the Marvin Gaye picture from Good Times, right? And then the Mona Lisa. It was very European, right? So coming to Atlanta and having the conversations and doing the Natural Black Arts Festival and seeing artists just. It wakened something up in you. And that was the same thing that happened on Blackish. He didn't know. And then he shouts you out. And I was like, right, how did that make you feel?
That for me was quite honestly one of many, but maybe one of the more prominent, like full circle moments that I can point to in my life.
It's beautiful,
right?
Beautiful.
So, you know, as I mentioned before, I've aspired to be an artist since I could hold a pencil.
Wow.
And that was largely and directly inspired by JJ on Good Times.
All right now. Come on now.
Come on now. You know, those paintings that JJ made on Good Times were paintings by an artist named Ernie Barnes.
Ernie Barnes, yes.
But I used to watch Good Times just to see what was going to be on JJ's easel. Yeah. You know, I fell in love with art because of JJ.
Isn't that something?
You know, when Blackish, I think it was after the end of the first season, I got an email from Kenya Barris, who created the show.
Oh, that's
and
nice.
He had the painting. He was like, I want your permission to use this piece in the Johnson family house. And it hung next to the door from seasons 2 through 8. It's in so many scenes. And to see, you know, like I got my bug, the seed was planted in me from watching, you know, TV,
black television,
and watching a black man on TV, you know, who was an artist. Now, mind you, here's my gripe. Name for me one other black male figure from popular media who's a visual artist.
No, we can't name him, but no. We think of Basquiat, but he's not a visual artist.
Well, I mean, Basquiat is a visual artist, but I mean, like in television and movies.
No, I can't name
a character who was written as a artist.
Nope, I got nothing.
Yeah.
I got nothing. Nope. Right?
So, this is why, I tend to stress the point, which is why I make the kind of work that I make, which is why I paint the types of subjects that I paint, which is why I style them the way that I do.
Yeah.
Visibility matters. Yeah. Visibility matters. It's like Atlanta for me. The ways that I see black people of all stripes, all economic, education, social strata,
right,
from the top to the bottom, left to right.
Yeah,
you see it all. Like your imagination for who and what you can be grows exponentially, right? It does. Because visibility is key. If you don't see yourself, you can't know yourself.
Visibility is key.
Yeah,
amazing. You have a lot of your art in your home, right?
Not really.
No.
Yeah, I have maybe 2 pieces that I made that hang in your house.
Mm-hmm. Do you have collections of your work stored? Is it, so do you rotate them out, or those are the 2 that stay?
Those are the 2 that stay.
That stay all the time. How come you don't have more?
Because, quite honestly, like, one, I see my work as a tool, as a balm.
Okay.
So I'm not doing it
for you.
For me, like I do it because I love it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I do it because it gives me. I know it's my purpose. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't make it to, like,
I got you.
Keep it for myself. I make it because I want it to go out into the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I want it to be in your house. I want it to be in that place where that little black boy or little black girl who has in the back of their mind an inkling that they want to be an artist. I want them to see that. Yeah. And I want them to see what's possible. And if I had it all in my house.
Yeah, you're right. And the times are so different, Fahamu, because kids don't even grow up with cartoons, mm-hmm. as you did. Mm-hmm. At least that started something for you. And then we did have good times. Mm-hmm. Blackish is no longer on the air. It's on Hulu or Netflix. And so, again, there's an opportunity that people can see your work that way. But there's very minimal mm-hmm. spaces of inspiration mm-hmm. for black kids to be artists. Mm-hmm. Where can they see that? So I understand and I respect that point. Can you remember or think of an exhibition that you've had that ran the longest? Which one of those might have happened for you?
That would probably be the exhibition I did, which was actually my PhD dissertation. It's called Do or Die. And that exhibition ran from 2016 to 2019, and it toured all over the country.
3 years. Mm-hmm. Did you tour with it, or your art just went?
I would typically go to every venue where the exhibition was mounted to do a talk, you know what I mean, like that kind of thing during the run of the exhibition.
Wow. 3 years. Mm-hmm. Did you sell a lot of pieces? As people see it, they're like, I want it. Do they buy it? So it's, wow.
Yeah.
You all right. You all right. You did a lot of work in Paris, right?
Mm-hmm. I do a lot of work in Paris.
You do a lot of work in Paris. Do you have a favorite city or country you'd like to be in?
That's always a tough question for me because I have so much. I love traveling.
Yeah.
And I love discovering new places. I'm not typically a creature of habit where I got to do the same thing over and over again. I like new experiences. New experiences. Like it's stimulating. But I do a lot of work in in Paris, and in a lot of Francophone countries, Morocco, in the Congo, DRC. Later in a couple months, I'm going to Niger for the first time. I've been able to trace my family's roots to Martinique. I love Martinique.
Nice.
Which is why my name is Pecou. It's a French name. My family has.
I felt the French, but I wasn't.
And I was knighted by France.
Were you?
Yes, I'm a chevalier.
You're a class. When did that happen for you?
Last year.
Oh, that's recent. Yeah. Come on, doctor.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, so it was a surprise to me as well. I almost threw the letter away.
Because you thought it was a joke?
Well, I didn't know what it was. It was just a manila envelope, and it said, Bonjour, Fahamu Pecou. And I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
And I finally, I sat on my counter in my kitchen for a couple of weeks, and I finally opened it. And it was a letter informing me that I had been selected to receive the honor of Knight in the Order of Arts and Letters for the country of France. Yeah.
It must feel amazing, Fahamu, to receive your flowers while you're still alive.
It does. And I'm learning to be quite honest with you, learning to accept it, but also recognize it as such, Yeah, and this is something I think a lot of artists wrestle with, a feeling of like worth and affirmation. Like sometimes you feel like you're just spinning your wheels and nobody's paying attention, and you know what I mean. You end up making comparisons of yourself to other people and what other people are doing, and I'm learning now at almost 50 years old how to accept, and celebrate.
You're a powerful human being in the sense that ancestors and spirit, universe trusted you with this gift, and you spoke of it before you really knew, right? Because you're like, starving artist. I don't know what that is. No, you're looking stuff up. You're trying to figure out what's the bread, what the bread box look like. Like, no, this is what I want to be. So it's almost like you spoke, you manifested, or you just followed what was in you to do. And it's a beautiful thing. The fifth project, right? Was that a show you used to do? Some kind of
15th project.
The 15th project. I'm sorry. Yeah. How was that? You did that some years ago?
Yeah. So I used to be on the board of the Atlanta Contemporary, and they used to have this program. Like you get like 15 minutes with the director of the institution as an artist, to talk about whatever you're working on.
Yeah.
And, the program wasn't getting the kind of like response that they had hoped. And in a board meeting, we were talking about it, and I was like, I think what could help, because sometimes, you bring a guest on, particularly with artists, because artists can be really quirky and weird, one time that artist might be very interesting, another time this artist may not be as interesting,
right.
And you lose the momentum.
Right.
So it's like, it could be really cool if you had something consistent, like a host, who would always be able to regulate, regardless of who the guests are.
Yeah.
They were like, that sounds like a great idea. You should do something with that. And so I pitched them, this concept called the 15 Project. And it was loosely based on the Andy Warhol quote that everybody would be famous for 15 minutes. And so you get your 15 minutes of fame on my couch.
You're so brilliant.
So it's designed, the platform is designed after like a late night talk show like Jimmy Fallon or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm the host. And there's 3 guests, that come out and interview for about 15 minutes. And then at the end, we have a DJ and it turns into a party.
Nice.
And so I did that at the Contemporary for about 3 years. And then I kind of broke off and started doing it on my own. And, I really want to bring it back. But
I was going to ask you.
Had the brain space and
let
capacity.
Me know. I'll work your door.
Yeah, for sure.
I would love to work your door.
Yeah, I would love to bring that back. It's a lot of fun. And again, I'm a performance artist.
Yes.
I can, like, one-on-one, find me in a corner in a club and I'm like this. Put me on a stage.
Really?
Oh, it's a whole other ballgame. I love being on stage. I love performing. I love entertaining. I love telling jokes. You know,
You're a dancer. You dance
I
too.
dance. I sing. Dance. You know what I mean? You name it.
Yeah. You like house music. You're all right with me.
Oh yeah, you already know.
Yeah. Those glasses you wear remind me of Kai Alce's brand of glasses.
Really?
Yeah,
Kai has some dope.
He's got a beautiful line. Shouts out to him. This conversation was amazing. You need to podcast or talk show or do the 15 project, or you need to do something. I know you're busy, but you gotta. Could we get something like once a quarter, maybe?
Maybe. Again, it's
twice a year.
I promise you, Fahamu has no shortage of ideas for things. It's just capacity to execute on those visions. I mean, I'm writing films. I have, storylines for like comic books and graphic novels. I got my paintings. I got the museum that I started. I've got my family. Yeah,
It's beautiful family.
It's a lot that I'm doing on a day-to-day, but just trying to coordinate and manage everything effectively is, it could be daunting.
I know. Shouts out to your wife. She's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you so much.
She's a beautiful woman, just filled with love and support.
Indeed.
And so I could see, why you are in a space of clarity and you have peace because you have a beautiful wife to support you in your dreams and what you're doing. Directing is in you, right? Yep. Producing, writing, the whole thing. Like, you got a lot of stuff to do.
Yeah. I have at this point I have 4 short films under my belt. 3 of which have won pretty major awards.
Good for you. Congratulations. Yeah. This is just feels like this is just the beginning. Like there's a whole nother.
I haven't even gotten started yet.
I know.
I'm still in the plastic.
This is why I'm so honored, because I feel like I caught you just in the nick of time, because you're really going to blast off even more now that we have this thing called social media, right? The fact that you have been able to be successful without this and to think out of the box, then now you got social media and everything's digital and everything's a touch of your phone. Like this is could be exciting times for you. Man, congratulations. Congratulations. What's next for you? What do you have on the horizon? Anything? I know some things you can't talk about, but just, maybe an exhibit coming up or maybe a concept. Share with us what you can, whatever you can.
I have 3 exhibits coming up.
Look at that. Not 1 or 2,
in 2025. One is will be in Morocco in October. And it's a collection called Icarus. I've always been fascinated with that story of Icarus.
Yeah.
My take on Icarus is actually sort of a reframing of the narrative.
Nice.
And it begins with this quote from Albert Einstein. It says, "If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll live forever feeling inadequate." Right?
Yeah, makes sense.
And so in my Icarus story, Icarus's fall isn't the end, it's actually the beginning. Yeah.
Okay.
In May, I am returning to Brooklyn and showing for the first time in New York since the pandemic, but my first time in Brooklyn ever.
Yeah, that's going to be touching.
Yeah, so it's on the eve of my 50th birthday, and the exhibition is a tribute, a veneration of the divine Black woman.
Really?
Yeah, and the name of the exhibition is "God Snapped When She Made Water in Black Women."
Ooh. Ooh, I may have to go to Brooklyn to see that one.
Yeah, so I'm super excited about that.
Oh my gosh. I can see, I'm putting it in the atmosphere, your work in the Brooklyn Museum.
Oh, most certainly. I got to get there.
You got to. Yeah. Brooklyn's owned. You have enough beautiful work. Like, you could, like, really rock out like that.
You hear that, Kimberly Gann, if you're listening?
Yeah, like the Brooklyn Museum, like, is calling your name. Like, you belong in a space like that. Now and not when you transition. Like, you should be able to live to see your work there and just sit in it. Like when people go to the Louvre in Paris, they just, I went and I just sat in the rooms because it's just amazing. So people could just sit in your work. Good for you. Good for you. You have a book and you've written. You got some books already.
I have a couple books, but I'm working on a new book.
Another one. You got so many stories. You're just a beautiful person.
Good things. I appreciate
you.
That.
You are a beautiful human being. I am honored to have you here. How can people find you?
Oh, I'm real easy to find.
So they say. Tell the people where they can find you. Where are you?
I'm on Instagram.
Yes.
It's at Fahamu Pecou, Fahamu Pecou. And then my website is Fahamu Pecou Art, Fahamu Pecou Art.com. And then if you want to get some of this like dope, swaggy
merch,
you can go to my other website, which is my studio, Studio Kawo. That's KAWO.com.
I'm getting me a t-shirt. Yeah, because you are the shit.
Yes, that's what
you are. And he makes that face. He makes that face. Yeah. Listen, that's my time. You know me. Real Chicks Rock. We are everywhere. Listen, I want to wish you nothing but continued success.
Thank you. And I wish you the same.
Oh, my God. Thank you so much. This is an honor to have you. I had you for a whole hour to myself. This is great. This is awesome. Listen, you know me, Real Chicks Rock. I'm everywhere. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I got the realchicksrock.com. Go to the website. Subscribe. We blog. We got a little merch there. We ain't the shit, though. But we got the t-shirts.
Yes, you are.
We got the stuff over there. Yeah, go check us out. But listen, just like... Now, he's from Brooklyn. He'll know. He'll resonate, right? Okay, the late, great Frankie Crocker, WBLS, right? Used to always say when he closed out his show, he would say, may you live to be 100 and I live to be 100 minus a day. So I never knew that beautiful people like you had passed away. Thank you for checking out Real Chicks Rock Presents Real Discussions. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next show.